with an ever-shining flame. Alma mater, we hail. God give the earth and great success. With truth and love, we'll conquer all. For God and SFS. Alma mater, we hail. God give the earth and great success. With truth and love, we'll conquer all. For God, our land, and SFS. With truth and love, let us unite and be true to our glorious college name. High on the hill, a beacon light is she, leading her children on to faith. March on to glory is a message full, spread truth and love both far and wide. Loyal to the hands who reigns of guidance, teacher and pupil side by side. Alma mater, we hail. God give years and great success. The truth and love will conquer all. For God, our land, and SFS. Alma mater, we hail. God give the earth and great success. With truth and love, we'll conquer all. For God, our land, and SFS.
A very good afternoon to one and all present here. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, National Voters Day, which is being organized by St. Francis de Sales College on the occasion of 12th National Voters Day. My name is Ms. Kavita Gawade and I welcome you all on behalf of St. Francis de Sales College, Seminary Hills, Nagpur. It's a wonderful day and I'm feeling extremely honored and privileged to extend my warm welcome to all the guests and participants present here. I heartily welcome our resource person for the day, Dr. Vikas Jambhulkar sir. I also welcome our beloved principal, Dr. K.T. Thomas sir. I welcome all my colleagues, friends and students. Now, I would like to share some highlighting facts about our college. St. Francis de Sales College is a Catholic Christian minority institution managed by the Catholic Archdiocese of Nagpur. The college is affiliated to Rashtrasant Tukaji Maharaj Nagpur University, Nagpur. St. Francis de Sales College was founded in 1956 by our venerable founder chairman, late Archbishop Eugene D'Souza, a visionary whose goal was to promote excellence, higher education, and foster human values. St. Francis College is one of the oldest colleges in the Vidarbha region of Maharashtra. The college is run by SFS College Society, which is registered society under the Societies Registration Act 1860. Though a religious minority institution, the college welcomes employees and students belonging to different castes and religion and students from diverse economic strata. The college offers different courses in science and arts. The college has been assessed and re-accredited A grade with CGPA of 3.23 by the National Assessment and Accreditation Council, Bangalore. Now, I would like to call upon our student Ms. Simran Trivedi from BA final year, who is the President of Student Representative Council, that is SRC, to elaborate the importance of National Voters Day. Over to you, Simran.
Thank you, ma'am. A very good afternoon to one and all present here. On behalf of the management, Principal Dr. Katie Thomas Sir, and staff of St. Francis de Sales College, Seminary Hills, Nagpur, I, Simran Trivedi, student of BA third year, welcome you all to this one-day national webinar on National Voters' Day. On 25th of January 2022, we are celebrating the 12th National Voters' Day. National Voters' Day is celebrated in India annually to aware people of their voting rights and makes more people contribute to the electoral political process in the country, mostly the newly eligible generation. The Election Commission of India was founded on 25th of January in the year 1950. Therefore, in the year 2011, during the rallies in the government campus, a union cabinet meeting was held, which was chaired by former Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh, who accepted the Law Ministry's proposal to enact this day as the National Voters' Day. This day signifies the importance of voting and selecting the leader within the maximum votes who in future will help in developing a particular area and solve the issues of the common people. Every year, a theme is decided according to which the events are planned and various competitions are held in many institutions. National Service Scheme (NSS), Electoral Literacy Club (ELC), and Department of Political Science of St. Francis de Sales College, Nagpur also organized poster drawing and quiz competitions to aware students of their voting rights. Junior, undergraduate, and postgraduate students from our college participated in this competition, and the result of which will be announced at the end of this webinar. As we emphasize on My Vote for Vibrant Democracy, today we have our guest speaker who is going to talk and enlighten rights. With immense pleasure and honor, I would like to introduce our guest speaker for today, Dr. Vikas Jambhulkar Sir. Dr. Vikas Jambhulkar Sir is an associate professor at the Department of Political Science, RTM Nagpur University, past 15 years and more. Earlier, he had taught at the National Law University, Bhopal, as an assistant professor and also worked as a research associate to Dr. Subhash Kashyap, constitutional advisor to the Government of India at Center for Policy Research, New Delhi. He has been the coordinator of the Center for the UGC Scheme for Entry in Services, RTM Nagpur University, as well as the coordinator of Bharti's IAS Training Center of the university. He has been actively engaged with both the administrative and academic work of the university and has published more than 25 papers in national and international journals and books. Sir has also delivered more than 250 invited lectures in various national and international seminars, conferences, and workshops on various themes of political science and international relations. He is the recipient of the National Educational Department Fellowship for a short-term training on American political development at the US. Sir has been to China as a part of delegation initiated by Institute of Chinese Studies and Chinese Embassy. He has been invited to Turkey and Prague for conferences. He has been actively engaged in organizing various programs, national as well as international, including seminars, conferences, workshops, guest lectures, and training programs in the Department of Political Science, where he is presently teaching. We are delighted to have you among us, sir. I extend a warm welcome to you. I now invite Dr. Vikas Jambhulkar sir to deliver his address. Over to you, sir.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir,
Yeah.
you're audible.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Simran, for such a generous introduction of me. Without editing any of it that I had provided, so it has been really, really generous and graceful of you. So, at the outset, let me first express my deep gratitude to the principal of Dr. K.T. Thomas, for providing me this opportunity once again to be in this college and address the younger students, the younger lot. I also express my gratitude towards Nikhil Borkar, who has been consistently pursuing me and who has been seeing this and coordinating this program. On behalf of the NSS unit of SFS College, along with the Department of Political Science, SFS College, this program has been organized, which marks the National Voters Day. So today is National Voters Day. So let me, at the first place, congratulate you on this day and extend my good wishes to all of you. As we all elections happen in one of the most fairest manner possible in this country, given the kind and enormity of its size, right? So it tries to ensure that elections are fair. It tries to ensure that everybody is able to come to the electoral booth. It tries to sensitize the people, educate the people regarding the importance of voting and why we should vote. And therefore, in real sense of the term, it actually what you can say, it carries this process of democracy ahead and keeps this whole tradition of democracy intact in this country. So I guess the Election Commission of India needs to be congratulated again for such kind of an enormous job that it does. Right. Today, the topic that has been given to me is that of my vote for vibrant democracy. So basically, what we'll be doing is like focusing upon the importance of voting, why vote matters and why it is such an important aspect of a vibrant democracy. And if we go back and look into the various aspects of our politics, right, and we will certainly appreciate this fact that we are living in a free country. We are living into a time when much of the rights have been established of the people, right? Both the genders, and now we are trying and struggling for the rights of all those people like transgenders and the LGBTQs and other people as well, right? So we are into those times when rights or the language of rights or the grammar of rights have been established in most part of the world, and therefore voting has become, or the electoral process or democracy in most part of the world has flourished, has taken roots, and elections are conducted by which this whole idea of self-government, this whole idea of government of the people is brought into existence, right? So before I move ahead, let me just try and put myself in a bit of perspective, because I guess there is a very young population or a very young audience in front of me. Though there are not much, but then I guess those who are there will appreciate what I am going to say. What I am going to present is a very, what you can say, a superficial argument, right? मैं आप लोगों को ऊपरी सतह का जो अंदाजा आपको देने वाला हूं, मैं आपको बहुत डीप नहीं लेके जा रहा हूं. आई एम नॉट गोइंग इनटू टू मच ऑफ फिलोसफी, आई एम नॉट गोइंग इनटू टू मच ऑफ थियरी, आई एम नॉट गोइंग इनटू टू मच ऑफ greater details, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what is there in the surface, right? What is there in the upper side of it, right? So beneath it, there is a bigger history. There is a very, very long history to all those aspects that I'm going to deal in this lecture. So I'll try to keep it as simple as possible. but also I would like to bring forth all those aspects which are necessary that we need to understand. Right. After that, I can take up questions if you people have any to ask to me. Right. So when we talk about democracy, right? So what is democracy? It's the famous definition of democracy is like a government of the people, for the people, and by the people, right? So when we talk about democracy like this, that means the government of the people means that it is the people to which the government represents, right? So government by the people means the people elect the government, and government for the people means that the government is entrusted, that it is a trust which is reposed upon the government, that they will take care of its citizens, those who have elected them, and on their behalf they are going to run the show, they are going to do the governance process, right? And this governance process they will do, this trust is reposed on the basis of the consensus, the agreement between the people and the government that, look, this is a constitution and the government is going to run according to this constitution and nothing else, right? So the government will not transgress, the government is not going to breach the promise which the people have reposed upon them, the government is not going to breach the trust that the people have reposed upon them by giving their power to the government to govern this, right? And therefore, it is expected that the government will work for the people in accordance to the principles and the provisions which are laid down in the Constitution. Particularly when we are referring to the Constitution, we are referring to the Constitution of India. So the government is binded by the Constitution of India, and the people have basically given government the power to govern them according to the Constitution of India. So this is what the trust the people have done. This is what the democracy that we are basically talking about, right? So it is one way when we look at the formation of a government. That is one way of looking into what we can say of how democracy works. That means the people elect their government, right? And repose their faith in the government that they are going to run the show. And if they are not satisfied with the government, they will elect another government in the next election. So that is how they do it, right? And this transfer of power that is being done, this has been done in a peaceful manner through a ballot, right? And not by bullet, right? So the ballot is the most peaceful, the most non-violent way in which we change governments, right? Every 5 years, every periodically we change the government. Now look, why this is such an important thing to highlight, precisely because if you just go back 200 years back and when you notice that there used to be kings, and there used to be kings. Now, this whole kingship was a hereditary business. So the king and his son and his son and his son. So there is a long chain of hereditary line that will become the king. So the king was never elected, right? And secondly, you cannot take away the power from the king. It's like there never used to be a transfer of power. There is no alternative. And if it has to be an alternative, it is always on the basis of war, right? So if it has to be replaced, the king has to be replaced, then it has to be replaced by war, right? So there was no provision. How, if I am dissatisfied with a certain rule, then I have an authority to change that rule, and that change has to be brought in peacefully. And if it has to be brought in peacefully, then it is done by, in modern times, not by bullet, not by wars, but through a peaceful and non-violent method of a ballot, right? So voting that is why such an important thing, and that actually gives back people a power. Power means in what sense? That if you are talking about the Constitution of India, then we can see that the Constitution say, we the people of India having solemnly resolved to constitute India. So what does it say? It says that the people of India have made this Constitution. It is the people of India for which the state has come into existence. It is the people of India for which this government runs the show, right? And therefore the people are sovereign, right? It is the people who are the source of power. It is the people for whom the government should work. right? So therefore, the people are the supreme. The people are the most powerful aspect of a modern political life. And therefore, when we are talking about this, so voting brings that power to the people that, look, you can decide your fate time and periodically again and again, and can choose a governance for yourself, which can go on perpetually, right? Whichever the people think is best suited for them, whichever the people think best works for them. So this is what the whole idea of governance is, and therefore one needs to appreciate this. Why? As I have told you, there is, if it has to be changed, if the governance has to be changed in earlier times, it has to be by war. So by bloodshed. This is not done today, right? In modern times, we do it in a more civilized manner, right? There is another aspect why we should appreciate the element of election and voting process. Why? Precisely because this whole idea, and particularly when we are dealing at the modern times basically is a time where there is an establishment of state. Earlier, it was not the state; it was basically a hereditary rule. In the ancient times, we see small city-states that have emerged both in India as well as in the West. And right, and there used to be some kind of a democracy, which is called as direct democracies, right? And people used to directly participate in the political process. But now, since the states are very big, therefore, what we do, we basically are talking about representative governments. That means we do not directly participate in the governance process, but we elect representatives, and these representatives on our behalf go and take part in the governance process, right? So since nowadays we have bigger states which cannot directly participate, we have this representative governance system, right? So even for this, if we see the Indian history, we need to appreciate this, that India, in its long period of political history, if I can say, right from the Buddhist period till the present period, if we roughly take this period, it is like 2,500 years old history, right? And in this 2,500 years old history, this is the first time that we are establishing a rule of law, right? And we have entered into a what I can say, we have entered into an enormous exercise, the size which we never had, the kind of an India that we see is an enormous India, and it is a first kind of an exercise, a constitutional exercise, a modern exercise, a rule of law, a rule by people. That is a kind of a conception that we all add. These are the kind of adjectives these are the kind of the specialities that we have, that India has established. So it becomes really very important to note that this whole idea of modern democracy is a very modern idea, is a very recent idea. Only it has got a 75 years history, and probably it is one of the most important histories in the entire history of the world and even in the mankind, right? So if we see, as I have noted earlier, that India is the biggest democracy in the world on this earth, and India conducts biggest electoral process in this world, right? So, and it is one of the biggest experiment and an act of faith that the founding fathers of the Constitution of India has reposed upon its people, that they are going to govern themselves. They are going to be they are going to decide the destinies and the future of this nation, right? So I guess that is where this needs to be appreciated. We all know that India had been colonized, and during this colonial period, the very idea of representation was fought out, right? So the Indian National Congress, what they were fighting for? They were fighting for representation, right? So everybody wanted the government need to represent the Indian people in the governance process, because the British didn't allow it, right? So earlier it were nominations, and from 1935 it were through elections, right? And in 1947 India became independent. In 1950 we got a constitution, and all the people, irrespective of caste, race, gender, or anything, were given rights. All those people who were 21 years of age were given this right to vote, right? So this is what is we call as universal franchisee, right? So universal franchise, that means every person, whether she is women or men, or belongs to any caste, religion, ethnicity, region, language, and so on and so forth, had a right to vote its own government. But then look out, this was not this was not available to us before 1935. Even the British government, which proposed or which talks about the glorious constitutional revolution, which talks about democracy in its own country, would not provide democracy in India, right? So it lacked that capacity of providing democracy in India. Yeah. If let us take up some of the examples and which will make it clear that why India is such a unique country in terms of providing this voting right to its people. So if we take up the strongest democracy of the world, that is the United States of America. So let us see the glimpse of it. So how the United States of America has gone through its democratic process. And see, it had to wait for the 19th Amendment. The America got independent in 1776, the American War of Independence, and it ultimately declared its independence in 1776, right? And it had to wait till the 19th Amendment, that is 1920, to provide voting rights to women, right? So the rights to vote was limited earlier to the white men, and then the right to vote was then extended to the white women, but the blacks and the black women didn't get the rights, right? And they have to wait till 1920 that to equalize the votes between men and women, right? So, and even after 1920, not many of the states actually provided this right, even after the constitutional amendment, and therefore the act had to come up, which is the Voting Rights Act in 1965, which finally established the rights of all the people in the United States, right? So can you see the people of the United States, and particularly the black communities in the United States, and particularly the black women in the United States, had to wait till 1965 to get their enfranchising, right? To get their right to vote, to exercise that right to vote. They got their independence in 1776, isn't it? So see, they have to wait for almost like 200 years. And the women in United States have to fight a 100-year-long war. It's like a 100-year-long movement against the men in America to get their franchisee rights, right? Their right to vote, their right to elect the government, right? So it was a very, very long movement within the United States. And only after this movement and only after a lot of what I can say, struggles, that the women in the United States got this right. The women in India got this right in one stroke. The founding fathers of the Constitution of India, and most particularly Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, has been very consistent in terms of expressing it right from the very beginning when he entered the political life in India, that the Indian people need to be provided without any condition the right to vote, right? So universal franchising is something that that the founding fathers actually argued for against colonialism and during the independence, post-independence, right? So if we take let us take some other cases so that it becomes more clear that how the West actually has been, right? So take Canada. So Canada in 1918. They came up with the women's suffrage, right? So men got the right to vote, but women were always discriminated, right? And they got the right to vote in 1918. But then the Asian Canadians, right? So those who went from Asia to Canada, they got the right to vote only in 1940s, right? And the indigenous Canadians, that means those who were the original inhabitants of Canada, right? Those people, the tribals of Canada, they got the right to vote in 1960, right? So this is an enormous discrimination towards the people who are the Canadian citizens, but then are not recognized as citizens by not providing them the right to vote, right? Australia provided right to vote to its indigenous women in 1962, right? So in UK, now let's consider UK. UK is considered to be one of the citadel or the place where this whole movement or democracy actually flourished. That is what is said, right? So in 1918, men 21 years of age, they got the right to vote, and women, now look how they discriminate. This is what is done in UK. So they didn't recognize the women in UK to be equally capable of electing the government, and then they decided that the age of the women should be 30 years, right? So men of 21 years, but women of 30 years got a right to vote with property qualifications, right? So this is a kind of a discrimination which the UK government had. In 1928, only the women got rights, equal rights along with men, and their age was reduced to 21, right? But only in 1968, in the Electoral Law Act, which removed it, this Electoral Law Act actually removed the property condition, the tax condition for elections, and reduced the age from 21 to 18, right? So actually, so this whole idea of universal franchise without any qualification only came in 1968, so far as the glorious revolution of democracy that the British people celebrate, right? So this kind of a little exceptionalism that the Britain exhibited, right? So look, so in comparison to the United States, in comparison to Canada, in comparison to Australia, in comparison to the United Kingdom, India has a better record in terms of providing the enfranchising right to its people, right? And that is what makes India such a very unique place and such a vibrant democracy, right? So, having said that, it becomes very imperative that, but then the people in these countries had to fight for their rights, and most particularly the women, the indigenous people, they had to fight for the right to vote. In India also, the whole national freedom struggle actually incorporated this whole idea of bringing in this aspect of right to vote and the very idea of representation and self-government, right? If we see slavery as an institution and women as a category were established in the European countries and Australia, and basically the Europe and the Australia basically institutionalized slavery and sustain slavery even to the extent of modern period, right? So it has a very it does not have a very cherished history in terms when it comes to democracy and providing rights to the people, and particularly those people who are discriminated on the basis of race and gender, right? So similarly in India also we have our own kind of discriminations, but then the Constitution of India provided rights to everyone indiscriminately to all the people, right? And that is the beauty of the Indian Constitution that we have, right? So let us take up another aspect, and I'll be very happy to share this, that right from 1952, that the first general election took place, till 2019, when the last general election that happened, right? The participation of the electorate has increased. In the past three elections, that is from the 15th, 16th, and 17th, that is in 2009, 2014, and 2019. In 2009, 58% of the people voted, right? In 16th election, that is in 2014, 2014, 66% of the people elected, and in 2019, 67% of the people elected. So it is consistently rising. But what is more refreshing in this election is this, that there is more women participation in the electoral process in India. So the gap in 2009 was, in comparison to the male voters, the gap was only 4.4%. But this gap was again narrowed down in 2014 by 1.5% only. And in 2019, the women voted more than men, right? So, mind you, it's like political parties are looking at this and they see that the women have become one of the most important constituent parts of the electoral process in India, and they now need to focus upon on issues of women. So, look, this is how vote can bring in. And if you see in the last 3 elections, we will see that in 1991, that is the 11th Lok Sabha, only 42 women were there in the Parliament of India. But see, in the last 3 elections, when actually the voting percentage of women have increased, the number of women also have increased in the Parliament, right? So, in the 15th election, that is in 2009, there were 64 women in the Parliament of India, which constituted obviously 12%, which is very less than the international average. In 2014, it was 66, and in 2019, it was 78 women, right? Which constitute nearly 14% of the national parliament, right? So, but slowly it is rising. Why it is rising? We can clearly see that since there is a rise also in the women's voters, there is also a rise in the women getting elected into the parliament and at a decision making and being a part of the decision making process, right? But having said that, there is a long way to go for India in terms of making things equal. Yes, women are now equally participating. What needs now to be addressed is, and that I guess the Election Commission might be thinking upon this, but the electorate needs to think more on this. The people of India needs to think more on this, that their participation in the parliament, the national, the state assemblies, as well as in local bodies, needs to be ensured in accordance to their population. If we consider that 50% are women, then they need to be there represented at 50%. So there has to be a 50% representation of women in the national parliament, the state assemblies, as well as in the local bodies. So let us see, just take a glimpse of what's there throughout the world and in India. Right. So New Zealand has 48% of women in the national parliament. Right. US has 27% so far for a great democracy. Right. Saudi Arabia, which is supposed to be a Muslim conservative, has 20% women participating in the national parliament. France has 33%, and Nepal has 37%, and Singapore has 29%. India has reached in its 75 years only till 14%. So what we see here is that despite the fact that women are coming up now and being a part of the electoral process, but the system has become such that they are still not been able to opening up for women so that they can represent them into the national parliament. So there has to be a push into this direction if you want that there has to be more equality of people in India. So it also reflects upon the kind of an unequal attitude that we have, both in terms of who should go and represent, right? So these are the glimpses that I'm providing to you, right? So when we are talking about this, then we are basically talking about how a democracy can become vibrant. A democracy can only become vibrant when its people are represented in the national parliament, when its people are brought into the state assemblies, when its people are brought into the local governments. Everybody has to be represented. And for that, it is only when everybody is represented, when the plurality is represented, when all the sections of the people are represented in the parliament, that will become a very, very vibrant democracy that we have, and enrich the already vibrant democracy that we have. And it is the necessity of the electorate to see this, that this happens. It is for the voters to see this, that the political parties come up with such kind of agendas and they are only voted on such kind of agendas, right? So we need, the voter needs to ensure that good people are elected at the first place, that every group is represented in the electoral process, so that all groups are represented. Democracy is what? Democracy is about representation. If I am not represented, if you are not represented, if the minorities are not represented, if the majorities are not represented, if the linguistic minorities are not represented, if the cultural minorities are not represented, then the democracy lacks in its value, right? And therefore, to enhance the value of democracy, it is very necessary that all the people, all the groups are represented within the through the constitutional process and through the electoral process. So that is one very important thing which needs to be ensured. And for that, the voters need to engage with politics, right? Most of the people, they say, no, politics is a bad game, but then they have a very distorted idea of politics. Politics is basically to improve the conditions of life. It is always for good. When we discuss about moral issues, we are discussing politics. When we talk about good and bad, we are talking about politics. When we talk about what should be done in the future, how our lives can become better, we are basically talking about politics, right? Politics decides our future. The one who we represent are deciding our future. So how do we decide then that who needs to be represented, isn't it? So do you want that some criminal element gets represented? Do you want that somebody who does not have any idea of politics, or who have no public presence, or who has not demonstrated in any ways that he is capable of politics, or he is capable of making good policies for the people? Then how do we deposit our trust in that person, right? So whenever a voter has to vote, then he needs to take into this consideration that who is the best person who can represent them into the parliament, right? And so that he can make the best possible policies which are going to help in the welfare and development of his people, right? So that is what the voter need to decide, right? And the voter need to ensure, because it is ultimately the decision of the voter which counts. It is the voter who decides who goes into the parliament and not anybody else, right? So if there is a composition of a parliament, or if there is a composition of a state legislature in which there are criminal elements and there are really notorious kind of people and who have these notorious charges over them, then obviously it is not for them who is to be blamed. It is the people who need to be blamed, because despite the fact that you know that this person has such kind of a credential, that this person has been talking like this, that this person never cares about the welfare of the people, that this person never talks about the welfare of the people, that this person has no idea about the welfare of the people, and despite that, if we are voting that person, then it is not that person who is to be blamed. It is the electorate that needs to look inside and see whom I am going to vote, whom I am depositing my trust to, right? So, whom I am making in charge of my life. It is my life which matters, right? And I am making somebody in charge of my life, because they are going to decide for us, right? And if they are going to decide for us, then you need to decide who should be going there, who should be making policies, who should be making laws, and so on and so forth. So it is a very, very important duty that the voter needs to perform. Two things have been noticed. One, there is a debate that whether it is a duty or whether should it be made compulsory for everybody to vote, all right? And whether it is a duty upon the people that they should vote. And I would say, yes, there is a responsibility that people should participate in voting, right? Should participate in the political process, right? Because only when you participate in the political process, you make your voice heard, right? One can keep on whining, one can keep on like complaining for endless times, right? But this whole complaining has no meaning at all. You need to walk the talk. We just cannot have this wish that this should happen. We should go and proactively express ourselves, right? And this expression is a very important stuff. The expression of speech. The expression is about speech. Voting is one form of speech which we use it ultimately, right? It is the what you can say, the final stage of our expression, when we have to come and decide and judge that whether the government which has worked for 5 years is a good government, and whether we should continue or whether we should do away with this government and bring change within the governance process. That is the ultimate act of voting, judging, right? But before that, there is this whole idea of free speech, engaging, right? Engaging in the political process. The engaging in political process means that we talk about politics, that we talk about how the government is functioning, that we talk about whether the policies which the government are coming is good or bad, whether it affects our life and in what way it is going to affect our lives, right? Whether the government is able to provide welfare, whether the government is able to provide a good condition of life to us, and so on and so forth, for which it has been elected, right? So these are the primary responsibilities of the government, to make your life better, right? If the government is not making your life better, then obviously you need to discuss that and you need to vote after that. So मत, जिसको हम लोग हिंदी में मत कहते हैं, वोट को हम लोग मत कहते हैं ना, मत पेटी मत. तो ये जो मत है, ये हमारा ओपिनियन है, ये हमारा स्पीच है, right? So this has to be done, right? And therefore this whole idea of dissent itself is a very important idea in the democratic process. It is not only about appreciating, since I have elected, that means that I am binded by that person and I should protect everything, and I should side with the government most of the time, whatever it does. No, that is not how it is. Say for example, you have a house and you are lending it to somebody else on rent, right? So can the person who is living on rent dictate you about, look, you need to do this and you need to do that, right? No, it is you who need to dictate the person who is renting in the house that, look, you need to keep the house in proper order, right? Or unless I will evict you out of the house, right? So that is how it is. So it is always this check which is necessary in a democracy, check upon power, right? If we cannot check power, then you know that saying, right? Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So that is what happens. So if a government is not checked, if power is not checked, then there is an unbridled power, there is an unbridled exercise of power which a government might exercise upon you, and the government might lose the way, might lose the whole idea of what it has been elected for, right? And therefore, this reminder, and a constant reminder, everyday reminder that, look, you have to work for the people, that, look, you have to work for the benefit and welfare of the people, has to be done by the people, right? And therefore, they need to speak out, they need to question, they need to listen, they need to come forth, right? That is how, and engage themselves in the political process of this country. And finally, when the time comes of voting, they should go to the ballot box and express what they feel about the government and what kind of a government they would like to bring up, what kind of a representative they would like to bring forth, and what kind of an agendas that the party should come up when they come for elections. So this is what is within the powers of the people, and therefore people, if they want change, if they want something better to happen, if they want their wishes to be fulfilled within the government, then within the country, then they must come forward and participate in the political process. And voting is one way of expressing yourself, but a very, very important way of expressing yourself there, which is why we choose our own government, right? So it is very disheartening at one point when we see that most of the people in the Americas or in the West, the African people, they do go and vote, but in India there is a reverse, there is an inverse trend, right? It is the poor, it is the marginalized section who go and vote more than those who are affluent, right? Most of the affluent people, they consider the day of voting as a holiday, and then they just move out for the picnic or just stay home and don't go for voting. So that is, I presume, a lack of responsibility towards the people and towards the welfare of the people that those who are not voting are basically displaying. So I guess that needs to be considered, and that needs to be taken. That this whole idea of a vibrant democracy can actually work. Democracy is what? Democracy is a government by talking, right? It is through discourse, it is through discussion, it is through debates that we govern ourselves, right? It is one of the most civilized way of governing ourselves. It is one of the most civilized way whereby we resolve our problems. It is the most civilized way whereby we come to a certain kind of a conclusion, right? And we formulate policies for our development. So I guess that is where that is what we need to achieve with this whole democratic process. I guess the Election Commission of India is carrying on this sensitization as well as the educational program through its program called SWEEP, and is conducting every year these programs to mark its own establishment day, but more importantly to mark what we can say and to give importance and to sensitize the people that look, voting is one of the most important duty that we need to perform in this country, right? So having said this, I thank all the people who have attended this meeting. I hope I have been able to reach out to you and have kept this whole thing very simple, not gone into the discipline of political science, and very thankful to all of you for such a patient hearing. I also thank the principal of SFS College as well as Nikhil Borkar, the coordinator of NSS as well as political science, for basically inviting me here to express my opinion. Thank you very much once again. If you have questions, we can ask. We can engage.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an informative and elaborative talk. Sir, we have received a question from our participant. So can we proceed with that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. The question is, sir, India's emergence as one of the world's largest vibrant democracy. In the light of above statements, according to you, what are the major challenges in front of young voters at present time?
Yeah, I guess young voters are, there are a lot of issues which are there, particularly with young voters. One, that they are formally, they are very young in terms of like the kind of environment, the political environment that they have. And they're exposed to a lot of, in an information age, they're exposed to a lot of fake information on the website or on the social media, and therefore they might falter, or they might find very difficult in terms of how to reach out to make any kind of a judgment, right? Second, most of the students are not engaged into, or most of these younger generations or younger population are not engaged into the political process in an institutionalized manner. That means through the political process of political parties or social movements or any organized way of raising issues and so on and so forth, and are very sporadic or loosely associated. And therefore, the kind of an informed debate that they should need to enter is lagging, and therefore I guess the younger generation needs to be more careful when others or any political agenda comes before us, and they must inform themselves more, and they should do their homework before laying out any opinion or expression. So On the other hand, they should also engage themselves within this process as well, and should participate in this whole discourse of issues that are debated. They should read the newspapers. Obviously, they should read every day what's happening around them. They should read what is the background of the things that are happening around them, right? And they should only take decisions after getting a what I can say, a definite or in a way more authentic information on the board, right? So these are something. So in an information age, information or getting a right information is the biggest challenge, right? And this younger generation is basically put into this whole mold of information, wherein they find it really, really difficult what information is the right information, which is a wrong information or a bad information. I guess that is one very, very important stuff. Yeah, that is what I think really is. One more thing that I would like to say. I had been talking about this in many programs as well. At the school level, at the college level, at the university level, right? We find very less, in a way, what you can say, the youth being involved into an organized, democratic manner of resolving issues. Right. Say, for example, if you are in a school, so very few schools have such kind of a democratic process of resolving the issues of students in a democratic manner, right? And thereby, this whole idea of democratic socialization, this democratic culture, only comes very late when they enter into this whole process of choosing their government, right, at the later stage. So, I guess. There has to be more forums. More forums need to be created for the youth of this country, whereby they can express themselves. They need those forums, right? And they need to talk about this. And their voice needs to be considered and should be given weightage. I guess they are not heard at all most of the time. They are used as fodders, but they are not heard at all, right? So they need to be heard. They need to be taken care of. They need to be understood. And that is where these forums needs to be created, and we need more forums, larger forums, whereby from where the students can engage themselves in a democratic manner and can express themselves. Right.
Thank you so much. Now, I would like to call upon Dr. Sachin B. Krishna for a formal vote of thanks. Sachin sir, over to you.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving your valuable time for this webinar. I really appreciate your thought, because the way you have explained the topic, the importance of voting, and the government should have work. So that was really wonderful talk. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. But one question is in my mind: when we say that they are our representative, then why it happens that every time whenever we have some issues that we have to protest, why they do not raise in the parliament?
Yeah, that is when you need to check them. You need to remember first. The duty of a voter is, the duty of every electorate is to see whether they are selecting a right candidate, right? If you are not selecting a right candidate, obviously you are going to be doomed, right? So that is the first condition. So a electorate has to be very careful in choosing a candidate, and they should also impress upon the political parties that what kind of candidates they are going to bring into politics, right? So that this is an agenda which needs to be set by the people themselves, right? If you set a good agenda, obviously the political parties have no other choice than to bring right people on the board, right? So the first responsibility lies on the people themselves. And obviously, then, this is what Dr. Ambedkar says, that even if you have elected a representative, you should be always watchful to what he is doing, right? You should never keep your faith into that representative. That has to be taken always with a pinch of salt. And you should always be like looking at him, whether he or she is doing the right thing or not. Right, and if she or he is not doing the right thing, then you have a right to criticize, you have a right to raise your voice, and you have a right to ask questions. So this is a minimum thing that everybody needs to be doing in a democracy, right? So without raising questions, how do you think that a democracy performs, right? So we see the process of parliamentary debates in the parliament, right? So there is a government bench and there is an opposition. Why there is an opposition? Because opposition is there precisely to ask questions, right? Yeah? To check the government. Come on, what are you doing? Yeah? So these duties need to be performed not just within the parliament but outside the parliament as well, right? Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for the wonderful
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah.
I express my grateful thanks to management, principal Dr. K.T. Thomas sir, and NSS program officer Dr. P.K. Sakarkar sir, head of the physics department and coordinator of electoral literacy Dr. Halim Ahmed sir, and head of the department of political science Dr. Nikhil Borkar sir for organizing this wonderful webinar. Thank you everyone. And not less, but all the organizing team members, because without their support, we cannot organize this program. Kavita ma'am, Pranita ma'am, Itika ma'am, Marvin sir, Pinky ma'am, and student representative Miss Simran Trivedi, and all the staff members and students who are attending this webinar. Thank you, everyone. Now, this time is to declare the result that we have conducted two competition. One is for poster drawing competition on the Voters Day, and another one is online quiz competition. And the result of poster drawing competition, the third prize goes to Sania Amin Khan, BCA third year. Congratulations, Sania. Second prize goes to Nandini Bodulu of BA second year. And first prize goes to Rani Mangal Singh of BA first year. Congratulations, everyone. And now the result of online quiz competition. Third prize goes to Samiksha Mahant of BA third year. Second prize goes to Satyam Jadhav of BA first year, and first prize goes to Shubham K. Dorlikar of BSc third year. Congratulations everyone for their wonderful performance, and participant who participated but they could not get a prize, but they will definitely get a participation certificate. So congratulations everyone for participating in the competitions. Thank you everyone. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you everyone for